I'm Tina from Greenhouse Studio, and today we're going to talk about all things Monstera. Monsteras are statement-making plants with their signature heart-shaped leaves with the holes in them that we all know and love. We see them unfurling all over social media, and they've even become design icons in their own right, since you can find them in everything from wallpaper to throw pillows, and they've become basically live interior design accessories. My Monstera came in this nice sized plastic liner which fit perfectly into this gray pot I already had, so I just left it there. But now I want a monster sized Monstera, and so I'm going to finally repot it into a larger home. I'm going to put it in here, which will be in a white ceramic pot. And I'm also going to give it a moss pole to climb to encourage it to grow bigger and fuller foliage. Monsteras are tropical vines native to Central America and Southern Mexico. And if you give a vine a support trellis, it promotes larger, fuller foliage, unless that plant is actually truly a trailing plant. So, for example, here I have my silver pothos, and as you can see, the farther down the line it gets, the smaller and more spread apart the leaves are. But if I were to take this and prop it up attach it to a moss pole, then it would think it had a tree trunk to grow on, and the foliage would grow a lot bigger and larger. If you're curious to know more about the plant science behind why vines grow bigger on supports, then check out my video and my post, which I'll link below, about DIY trellises for climbing indoor plants. Okay, so now let's talk about repotting. So I'm going to size up my Monstera in its recycled liner, which I'll then put into a ceramic pot. I don't like to have saucers underneath containers, so that's what I usually do. It's just your individual preference. So here's the plant outside of its liner, and you can see it has some circling roots along the bottom, but overall it's not too bad. But we do try to disrupt these to encourage them to grow in a different direction outward once they're in the larger container. So you can rough them up just this way and break them up a bit, or you can also physically cut them. These aren't so bad that I'm going to cut them. You can just cut up the sides and save 3 places, but these are better than I thought they would be, frankly. So I'm not going to do much other than just encourage them to grow outward before I put them into the new container. Meanwhile, the new pot has been partly filled with a good indoor planting mix and is ready for the Monstera. It's a peat-based soil with some perlite added for aeration. I threw in a handful of fine orchid mix just because I had it, which adds some fine bark, and some charcoal, which is also helpful. But aeroids aren't that picky, and Monstera is part of the Araceae family, which includes a lot of your favorite houseplants, from pothos to philodendrons and anthuriums as well. And aeroids overall, as long as you have good drainage, meaning it has some larger aggregates like the perlite for drainage, combined with quality organic material, like a good indoor potting mix would have, then I think your Monstera will be fine. Okay, here's my 36-inch stake that's covered with coir, which is the term for coconut fiber, and I will put this into the pot and I will bind the Monstera to it with twine. And that will help to encourage the foliage to grow larger. So now it's time to actually do the transplanting part. And here you can see I'm going to try to I'm going to displace some of that soil so the roots that are dangling can go down farther toward the bottom of the container. And then I'm going to fill in kind of in the center and get it sort of in between these roots that are here. So now you can see it's kind of sitting on its own. It's near the top of the liner, which is where I want it to be. And I just will keep putting soil into the sides, kind of rotating it around to prop it up so that it has soil filled in all the way around. And then what I do is once I have a fair amount of soil in the sides, then I'll water it, and the water will take out the air pockets, and so you'll see the soil level sink down. And then you just keep adding in more soil and rinse and repeat. So add soil, water it, the soil will get pulled down, the air pockets will get filled in, and then just add in more soil, and then eventually you'll do a final watering where you can see that the soil is all even and the pot is, your plant is basically ready to go. Okay, and minor detail, I needed to put my moss pole in. So I have that wedged in the side. Basically, it's being held up by the side of the container. This container isn't so huge that it kind of needs to stand up on its own, so that makes it a lot easier actually. And then again, just filling in the soil around the sides of it until we are nice and level. Okay, and now it's pretty much time to water it. So I'm going to water it and then put in some more soil and water it, like I said. So here we have the Monstera all potted up. It's in its plastic nursery liner, which has drainage, sitting inside of this larger ceramic container, which doesn't have drainage. And I waterproofed the bottom of this pot, and I'll put a link below to the posted video on how I do that. So that way when I put water into here and it drains out into the pot, then it doesn't seep through. Sometimes they seep through onto your floor. So I also wanted to talk about Monstera's aerial roots. I think they are beautiful and fascinating. These aerial roots grow from along the stem. They're different from the roots that are down at the bottom. And they serve two purposes. One, they help the plant itself to attach. They'll help it grow up a tree trunk, for example, or go over a branch, so they're good for attachment. And the other thing they do is they drop down from wherever they are in the plant, you know, it could be very high up a tree trunk that it's climbing down into the ground, and it provides support that way by rooting itself in the ground, and it also provides nutrient uptake, which is another reason why Monstera will grow so much larger out in the wild when they're climbing a tree, because they are getting supplemental nutrition from these aerial roots that drop and then are able to uptake extra nutrients from the soil. So anyway, I just think they're very interesting and beautiful, and it made me think that this would be a good candidate for displaying on a plant stand too. As opposed to just putting it on the ground, because then the aerial roots will be dangling down and that'll look interesting, and you'll be less likely to step on them, which is what I seem to keep doing today, and squishing them. So, and here's the moss pole. As soon as it starts producing more growth, then I'll tie the new growth to the pole, but for now I think I'll just leave it. And I can also trim off anything that doesn't look good. It's a good idea to do while you're repotting, of course. I cut off this little yellow juvenile leaf, and this leaf I'm tempted to cut as well because it was damaged by box cutters when it was unpackaged at the store. And overall, this whole plant is kind of yellowish. You know, you're used to seeing really dark green foliage with Monstera, right? Not that it couldn't use a shot of nitrogen, some nitrogen fertilizer, but more than that, I kept it in this window during the winter time, and the sun came in at a slant and it gave it way too much direct sun. It's a south-facing window, so it actually got bleached out by that. So once I get a new leaf, then I'll probably cut this one off, because I want the plant to put more energy into new growth instead of sustaining something that is never going to look great to begin with. So that's a strategy, you know, cut off the old growth so that your plant will put more energy into new growth. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.